decades ago. I don't remember exactly when I was launched into space. I don't remember exactly why, but what I do remember is that I bought a box full of the best pop culture films and shows. The first week in space was great. But all went downhill when I went to dump my waste into space. I made a mistake and pressed the wrong button and opened the door to storage room A. My VHS box was launched into space. I went insane due to lack of entertainment and became the Contrarian. Decades later, my ship crashed onto Earth, and I finally got a chance to watch my favorite VHS tapes. When I was done, I was excited to learn that all of my favorite films have had sequels and spin-offs. Little did I know, I was about to go insane again. Contrarians log number 10. Let's see, one moment. Forgot to do something. Hello, hello? Hello, hello? Okay. I didn't monitor my audio. Okay, so anyway, I don't know if people celebrate the 10th episode of anything, but I'm gonna. Yay to making it to 10. Double digits now. Let's get to triple digits, y'all. Today we're going to be talking about the future of Star Wars. A little while ago, the news broke that Dave Filoni has gotten a new position. He is now, I think, Chief Creative Director, something like that. Still underneath Kathleen Kennedy. So let's see. So that is kind of unfortunate. But let's talk about. I saw a clip of a colleague of his talking about a conversation they had, and I think it kind of hints to what's to come for the Star Wars franchise. So let's take a look at those clips. All right. All right. Let me just pause these. Got two videos we're going to be watching today. Okay, so this is I don't remember his name. He's the guy that played Darth Maul. But anyway, let's see. Let's see what he has to say.
Good if the stories are different. Dave Filoni and I once had this argument that educated me greatly, because I was all concerned. There was this thing I was recording as Darth Maul for this audiobook, and it wasn't, strictly speaking, consistent with something that we did in Clone Wars.
Right.
And I said, Dave, what should I do? Should I tell them to change the line? Should I blah blah? What do you think? And how do I solve this problem? And he just said, Sam, it's good if the stories are different. Well, what do you mean? It has to be consistent. He's like, no, it doesn't. These are all.
All right, so I'm gonna pause it there and just start saying my thoughts on this. This is not good, guys. This is really, really, really bad. The fact that Dave Filoni doesn't think that consistency matters in story is a massive problem, and it's going to make the stories in the future disconnected and kind of random. And I mean, we've seen a lot of this from Dave Filoni already. So, yeah, this is not going to be a good thing. So let's check. Let's continue the video and see Dave's reason why he thinks consistency is not important. Hello, hello, hello. I'm worried about my audio. Okay.
Tall tales, and they all of the tellings.
Roll that back.
Said, Sam, it's good if the stories are different. Well, what do you mean? It has to be consistent. He's like, no, it doesn't. These are all tall tales, and they all of the tellings. It's great if it's a little bit different. That's reason to go seek that out, to get a different perspective on the same story. This campfire that night that was told that story, this happened and Ahsoka's lightsaber was blue, but over here you heard the same story and Ahsoka's lightsaber was green, and that's good. And when I thought about what he said, I'm like, he's right, and that's always been the way it was with George.
All right, so that is terrible, in my opinion. He says that stories are a tall tale, like they're lies, like tall tales are lies. Yeah, I mean, fictional stories are not true, but you're telling it to the audience who you're hoping to take on a journey of make believe. And there's a phrase that storytellers use called willing suspension of disbelief. And you can tell a story about anything. You can tell stories about uh, like the Pixar stories, there's stories about a robot that doesn't talk, but everybody buys into that story because of the story. There's a story about a rat that cooks food. That's ridiculous. So why are people there's stories about toys that come to life, like, but when you're sitting there watching the movie, you're not thinking like, oh, this is fake. You're in the story, you're empathizing, you're experiencing it with the characters. And the reason why we're able to watch these crazy outlandish stories and believe them just for a moment while you're watching it, um, is because of consistency. That's the thing that keeps our mind in a creative uh, place where we're willing to accept these amazing, fantastic stories, is consistency. So you and I don't agree that this is like a bunch of different people telling stories from different perspectives, because that's too meta. That's like, I think characters can have a different perspective of events in a story, but you can't have the writer have a different perspective, or you can't have that. You have to have, you know, the truth, the events that happened, and then you can have characters experience it from their perspective, and then you have a bunch of different characters who experience it in different from different perspectives, and so they start arguing with each other. But the story itself has a like a factual objective reality that the characters in the story disagree with. And sometimes the objective reality is kind of vague, but it's consistent. And it's allowed to be vague because it's consistent and it's not contradicting itself. So the characters can contradict each other, and it's because they see things from different points of view, different histories that they've had. So, and the example that Dave gave that was so flimsy is oh, in this story her lightsaber is green, and in this story it's blue. Like, that really doesn't matter. That's just a color choice. Like, there's things that are like inconsistencies are plot holes. So bigger the plot holes are, the more the audience gets pulled out of their suspension of disbelief. So yeah, the color of the lightsaber is different. That's a plot hole, but it's small. It's a tiny little tear, and maybe that would cause someone who's really paying attention to that to go, huh? For a second, and then they're like, ah, okay, it's blue, and then you get back into the story. But the more little tears like that build up throughout a story, the more it pulls the audience out of their suspension of disbelief. And it's not okay that the new creative director of the whole thing, the whole franchise, he doesn't think consistency matters. And he's supposed to be running different shows, different movies, like tons of different things, and you're supposed to keep track of all this stuff, and there's supposed to be a continuity and consistency on how of characters' history, events, when things took place, where people were. Like, it's a very complicated thing. So to put someone in charge that doesn't think that that's important, it means it's gonna be unbearable to watch. It's like, I mean, we've already seen, like, and he brings up George as if he's like he's the creator of Star Wars. He's the writer, but the first three films, for the most part, all had pretty much the same team working on it until the third film, and still until Return of the Jedi. There's some replacements here and there, job roles, replacements, and everything, but the actors were all the same, plus some additions. So what I'm saying here is like, as soon as when an individual or a group of people or a handful of people create something iconic and incredible that is like a global phenomenon, the problem is that unless that original group of people are working on it and vetting new people to come in to make sure that they understand the world and are competent enough to work on a project like this, as soon as you start moving the IP away from the creators, um, there's something called the Pareto distribution that is just pretty universal. It dictates the height of trees. It dictates a bunch of stuff. It dictates like intelligence, like wealth, and it's basically like it's a bell curve. It looks like a bell curve, and like the average, like most people in the middle are like normies, and then there's like 1% of people that are like uh really really talented, and then there's like another 1% of the people that are like very very low IQ. So that's kind of the Pareto distribution that keeps on popping up in almost everywhere you look if you study it. Um, and so that affects film franchises. So the original team, which broke up originally because it was George Lucas, the three main actors who contributed a lot, and then um, the producers were a big part of it, and Marsha Lucas, who edited and rewrote a couple of things apparently. I don't know if this is officially put anywhere, but I heard from someone that if you look at the redrafts uh, of the original script, you'll see in the final draft that there's like a more feminine handwriting that is not George Lucas's handwriting. So people think it might be Martha Lucas that helped with some of the character work. So all these great collaborative people that are like, when it comes to talent, they're like the 1% of really talented people. That group of people started breaking apart, and new people were added, and so that's around like I think George Lucas um, divorced Marsha Lucas, or there was a divorce. I don't know. I don't understand what caused it or anything. But it's not about that. But the fact is that that's one piece that was a part of the original group that was gone. And then from there, more and more people started moving on to different projects, or creative differences started happening. And so the original group started breaking apart. And so that's why the prequels, in my opinion, aren't as strong as the original. Is like, you still had George, you still had the main like visionary person, but the writing got a little sloppy, and then when George sold it to Disney, and then Disney kicked out George, then that's when the normies, like when you look at the Pareto distribution, the people that are just very average and not very smart, and this is where the propagandists start coming in to Star Wars, like basically I would say Ryan Johnson and Kathleen Kennedy obviously is a propagandist. She's not a creative at all. And yeah, they have an agenda. They have something that they want to push. They have something they want popular, like their opinions to be on the screen. And that's priority number one. Like the characters consistency isn't priority. All that stuff isn't priority. I wouldn't say that Dave Filoni is a propagandist, but I think he's one of those. He's one of those people that were brought into Star Wars after the prequels to work on the animated thing, and he was very close to George, but he's nowhere near as good as George when it comes to creating Star Wars. Like, um, he had there's footage from his original from like the behind the scenes where they were talking about like Clone Wars and how that started, and Dave Filoni was talking about like, oh, I when I pitched it to George, I came up with this whole cast of characters, and he looked at it and said, I like Ahsoka. You can have Ahsoka be Anakin's Padawan, but everybody else I want to be like the main characters from the prequels, so Obi-Wan and like the main Jedi Council people, and all those people are the rest of the cast. And so, and he kind of seemed like annoyed by that when he said it. Like the tone of his voice was like he was like, yeah, he didn't want, he let me keep Ahsoka, but he didn't want my other characters. And so now that George is gone, but Filoni remains, you see this vibe in all the projects that he's been a part of. Is like this, the whole show like pivots on a dime to show off how cool Dave Filoni's characters are. Like they all have like the coolest like camera angles, the music changes, and it like breaks the story completely. Like, what's his Cad Bane, the guy? He just like comes walking in from the desert out of nowhere. Where did he come from? He just been walking in the desert for days and days. There's no ship behind it. Where the heck did he come from? Like he, and there's like, oh, I want him to be like Clint Eastwood in his cowboy movies, and uh and so he's just Dave Filoni is a huge nerd, a huge fan, but he's like a child with his action figures. Very he's not very good at story consistency stuff. Like maybe he's good at character design. Like Ahsoka looks pretty cool, like as a Jedi and everything. But like even all the great things about Ahsoka, which I'm not a huge fan of. I'm not a fan of the Clone Wars. It's not my tone. It's too random and sporadic. There's very little consistency. Um, I guess I'm not. I'm a fan of episodic Star Wars. I don't like random stories throughout the whole thing. I want it to be in the order of specifically. It's not The Office. The Office, like, it can be episodic, but then it's just a random day in the office, and I like that. That's a comedy. But Star Wars, it's not the right universe to be doing that. So anyway, yeah. So it doesn't look good for Star Wars because for almost has it been 10 years? Over 10 years now, it's been in control by propagandists, and their only goal was to like replace all of the characters that are iconic because in their point of view, what they represent is not okay and should not be promoted in films and shows. So they need to be like taken down a peg or two, as it were. So anyway, I want to when watching this consistency, it reminded me of the creators of South Park, in contradiction to, or in counterpoint to the I don't even know if that's the right word. In comparison to Star Wars, South Park has been uh has been sorry, 1 second. I just gotta check. Alright, sorry about that. I'll cut that part out. Yeah, my my son went to the grocery store with my wife, and he fell asleep on the way there, and it was one of those drop-off order things, and so they gave her the food and drove back, and she drove back, and then he woke up home and was like, "I thought we were going to the store," and he's been crying about that. So anyway, had to go down there and comfort him a little bit. All right. So anyway, so South Park was created by these two. I forgot their names. I'm not good with names, but these two writers, since day one, since the '90s, since the late '90s, they were working on the show together. And so since they have been like, and I'm sure they have like people that they have with them that have been day oneers as well, and they did a really good job about vetting new employees to make sure that they understood the vision of the show and everything. So, like, South Park as a comedy, as a show, has never dipped below mid. I've never seen a bad episode. Every episode I've laughed at least 5 times. So, yeah, there's better ones and worse ones, but none of them have dipped as low as Star Wars has. So that's what you get when you have creators that stick with something and aren't replaced or do not give away their property to other people. I can't imagine what South Park would be if they just sold it to someone. It'd probably become absolute trash. All right, so let's see what they have to say about storytelling. All right.
Emmy Award winning and Tony
I'm nervous. I don't know why I'm
creators
nervous.
of South Park, Matt Stone and Trey Parker.
Okay, Matt.
You think I'm kidding, right?
Whole wall is our whole South Park writers room. One whole wall is one of these. Our whole South Park
Wait, let me see if I get that.
our whole South Park writers room. One whole wall is one of these, and we've got it split up into 3 acts.
We have
where
different
the
colored
commercial
markers
breaks
just
are.
like here too. Look at.
Yep.
We have that.
And I walk around with the markers like this, and we'll go, okay, we do a show about
This
this.
is
I was
basically our writer's room.
Oh, okay, well, somewhere, okay, this would be a funny scene if we had this.
true.
Each individual scene has to work as a kind of funny sketch. You don't want one scene that's just like, well, what was the point of that scene? We found out this really simple rule that maybe you guys have all heard before, but it took us a long time to learn it. But we can take these beats, which are basically the beats of your outline, and if the words "and then" belong between those beats, you're f***ed, basically. You got something pretty boring. What should happen between every beat that you've written down is either the word "therefore" or "but." Right? So what I'm saying is that you come up with an idea and it's like, okay, this happens, right? And then this happens. No. It should be this happens, and therefore this happens. But this happens, therefore this happens. And that, as soon as we are able to, and literally sometimes we'll write it out to make sure we're doing it. We'll have.
Okay, so that is what consistency means, right? Like Dave Filoni is just an and then guy. He just gets his action figures and he mashes them together and says, and then Ahsoka meets the what's another Sabine character, and they're Padawans now. She's her Padawan. She's a Jedi now. Then she's a Jedi because, yeah. And it's just like, what is this garbage? Like, he doesn't know basic writing stuff. And this, I'd say, is like, it's simple to understand, but it's amazing that nobody, or like how rare it is that this actually happens in film. Like, cause and effect. It feels like a bunch of random stuff happen in like major motion pictures. Actually, I think I just stole what, I forgot what, I don't know who is who, but I'm going to just continue and then finish my thoughts, because I don't want to step on their words.
Our beats, and we'll say, okay, this happened, but then this happens, and that affects this, and that does to that, and that's why you get a show that feels like, okay, this to that, to this to that, but this, here's the complication to that. And there's so many scripts we read from new writers and things that we see.
God, I see movies.
And
You see movies that you're just watching. It's like this happened, and then this happens, and then this happens. That's when you're in a movie, just going, "What the am I watching this movie for?" Just like this happened, and then this happened, and this happened. That's not a movie, you know. That's not a story. Like Trey said, it's those two, but because therefore that gives you the causation between each beat, and that makes that's a story.
Yeah.
All right, so, and shout out to who is this? MTV University, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, so that's why Star Wars is going to, this is my prediction, two options for the future of Star Wars. One is it will just become like the numbers will just go, the viewers will go smaller and smaller and smaller every project that they make, that eventually they'll just stop making Star Wars because it's not profitable, and they might even sell it, right? Or like a project will be so bad that that they'll panic and they'll change house and hire a new person to run Star Wars who will like straighten the ship. But like it has to go to zero before that happens. It will either go into obscurity and all the merchandise and all the everything. No one will care about Star Wars anymore, except for people that are like, remember Star Wars? Like, yeah, those 3 movies were great. And then a bunch of stuff happened afterwards, but the 3 movies were great. And it'll be like this cult thing, this cult following of the original 3. But I hope that doesn't happen. I'm actually hoping for, like, I mean, I don't know how much worse you can get from Ahsoka. Like, Ahsoka's so awful, but I hope that they make I hope that the Rey movie comes out and that it is absolutely god awful, and then they'll have no choice but to switch up everything or like sell it or something like that, and then it will get back into the hands of George Lucas. Even like if they somehow bring George Lucas back or sell it back to George Lucas and we get like prequel quality, at the very least prequel quality Star Wars again, that would be amazing. Or sell it to a uber fan of Star Wars, not a Dave Filoni type uber fan that loves it but doesn't understand it, but like an uber fan who actually deeply understands it. That would be probably the best outcome. But yeah, it's not in good shape, and the future of Star Wars is not good because we need consistency. Like, we don't like it. Every film, like the Last Jedi was like you think that happened, and that, do you know what that means? Nothing. And then this happens, and you know what that means? Nothing. And then this happens, and you know what that means? Nothing. Like, it was just like a nothing burger on top of itself over and over again. And then the Rise of Skywalker was just, and then, oh, and this character's back, and then this character's back, blah, blah, blah. And it's just, yeah, these people don't know what they're doing, and the ship is so big that they can't turn it, like, and they have to be extremely safe, so they can't take any risks and go in any directions that are good. Like, yeah, so I'm not optimistic about the future of Star Wars at all, and I'm curious what you guys think. What do you think the future of Star Wars is? Do you think it could be back to Empire Strikes Back level someday? I mean, Andor, I did an episode on Andor, and Andor is a great show. And if the writer of Andor got like 100% of the power, then that would be great. But apparently, my friend that reviewed it with me, he said that it was like critically acclaimed and the views are doing great. But I don't know. I'm hearing places that the viewership of Andor has been very, very low. Or maybe just the rabid fan response on Twitter has been like nothing. Very little for Andor. But like every time they wave like Anakin Skywalker in front of the fans, they just blow up Twitter and they're like, "Oh, Dave Filoni is the one. He should be like give this guy all the power." So I just want to put my voice out there and say, if anyone's listening at Lucasfilm, don't do that. Don't go to Dave Filoni. Please don't fire the propagandists, remove them, and just give the whole thing to geez, I don't even remember his name, but whoever the writer and director of Andor was, because that guy gets it. That guy fully understands everything. So yeah, I don't have much left to say here, and so thanks for watching. And please like and subscribe and share to any friends. And I'm just gonna put it out there. I'm a big fan of the Critical Drinker and Mahler and everything. So if any of you guys would like another film critic on your podcasts, I would love to be a part of it. But yeah,